in defense of hamsterism. Now, guys, if you don't know what hamsterism is a personal financial policy or plan where the primary emphasis is on saving money and not spending a lot. So, for example, if your job doesn't pay a lot, and well, you have friends who are like, just take out the consumption loan and buy some fancy clothes and like some expensive liquor and party, and the other choice is just not to do that. And I would defend the hamster policy. There's a lot of attacks on it, especially by alpha male influencers like Andrew Tate, who say that it's not worth living as a hamster, and you should spend and like try to like hustle some like crypto scams or cam girl businesses. So first of all, I think crypto scams, they're very hard to get into, and usually you will be the out group. You'll be the sucker. You will not sell at the peak. You'll sell at the dip, and they're probably going to be illegalized, clamped down, and like backtracked, and they're going to be retroactively punished. Cam girl business. Well, I think a lot of people in traditionalist movements, they have a fundamental conflict of values if they want to do that. There's certainly some like Greek Golden Dawn members have engaged in racketeering and prostitution, smuggling and human trafficking and such, but I think most people in our movements are not really willing to, compromise their values like that. And so what the hamster policy is basically, you kind of suffer a little bit. You don't have as many fancy things. You focus on the primary stuff: food, rent, electricity, internet. Staying afloat. But the benefits of that is that these like quick hustling methods, right? They are very risky. Right? They're extremely risky. They are oftentimes illegal. Oftentimes the hustlers tell you to not pay your taxes. Do some like trafficking or crypto scams or whatever, and you might end up in jail. And if you're just careful and you have like self control, and you kind of realize that the sort of excessive standard of living like with that speed, it's just not feasible safely and rationally, reasonably, and so you just cut back on expenses, or you don't go to the next bracket of expenses. Because a book on like common sense economics I've read is that basically it made a good claim that sometimes the problem is not even the lack of your income, it's the question of your expenses. Because people who get like a raise, get a better job, the bad trend that tends to be is that they sense like an obligation, or they sense a need to show it off by flashy cars and luxury goods and stuff, and so their expenditures rise with their salary, and so what they're left with is that they spend everything. They don't save, they don't invest, and they get screwed over. So I would say that if you want to have like a stable life and a stable retirement, the flashy stuff like the jewels and the luxury cars and the parties, they're very attractive. But if you want to have like a stable, secure life with no like illegal hustling involved, and actually a retirement fund, then sometimes it's just best to save and not to spend on the fancy stuff. Like, do you really need like 10 diamond watches with the logo of Bugatti on them, or do you really need those gold rings? Do you really need to LARP as a gangster? So yeah, sometimes it's just best to save and not spend frivolously.